Okay, Sandy, we're live.
We're live. Hello.
Hello, you're right, love.
Yes, I'm all right, love.
It's grand to see you. It's nice having you over the other day, by the way. It's really nice
Oh, it
having
was so nice to
you.
catch up and
Good.
yeah, really, really heartwarming and lovely.
Well,
Yeah.
we're all so busy, aren't we, doing one thing or another? So it's just
I
nice to stop
know.
and pause and like the old days, hang around on the sofa for a cup of coffee
Yeah.
and chat. Anyway, we're not doing that. Well, we are kind of thing. We're chatting, not hanging around on the sofa though. We got things to talk about, which are quite serious, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, Sandy, what do you think is going on generally? Before we're going to be talking about the farmers, but what do you think on an overall objective sort of view? What is going on in the world?
Well, what I'm seeing is a massive acceleration of Agenda 2030, which
Yeah.
is really causing all the chaos that we're seeing now. And some people are seeing bits of it in sort of silos, but not putting maybe everything together. And, the thing is that this has been accelerated for such a long time because initially when the Earth Summit was put together in 1992, where the whole world was hoodwinked into signing up to Agenda 21, the agenda for the 21st century, global governance, and they were hoodwinked by all the oil billionaires that put the Earth Summit together because they were going to make loads of money on carbon banks and all that sort of thing. They decided then to give up the oil and to take on the carbon. So what they've done really is they've tried to accelerate it since then, and they had 8 millennium goals then that had to be done from 1992 to 2000. They failed, and they were called the 8 millennium goals, and they failed. So then they accelerated it again in 2015 because nothing had happened. So they accelerated it again. 2015, they accelerated it with the 17 goals to be achieved by 2030. That was the big acceleration. Well, that didn't work. And so really in 2019, they had to accelerate it again. And they used COVID to accelerate it to the point where it is now. They signed a big document in Geneva called the Strategic Framework Partnership Document in June 2019 to accelerate Agenda 2030. And they had six sort of kind of ways of accelerating it. And one of them was digital cooperation. And then, I mean, the rest is history, really. 4 months later, they held Event 201. The same people, Antonio Guterres in Geneva, WEF, the people that had met originally in Geneva to sign the Strategic Framework Partnership Acceleration document, and they met in Johns Hopkins in New York in 4 months after Geneva, and they had Event 201, which actually was the tabletop exercise to bring in the pandemic. So yeah, but
Yeah.
Bill and Melinda Gates were there to say, yeah, we got the answer. It was a tabletop exercise. Sort of what if a novel coronavirus escaped from a wet market in Brazil? What would we do? Oh, we've got the answer. We
It makes
did
my
it
eyes are
years
watering
ago.
with humour because it
Yeah,
is so ironic, isn't it?
I
It's so
know, it's so
funny.
ironic. So then, whilst we were sleeping, literally all the infrastructure went in for ULEZ, 15-minute cities, the whole blooming lot, while we were locked up.
Yeah.
And they got their digital cooperation that they wanted in the original document in Geneva.
Can I,
So
can I pause you there, Sandy? Can I, because everybody says they. Who, in your opinion, are they?
good question. Now, it's a really deep dive into who they are because it really goes back to the Black nobility. It's the ruling classes, the merchant classes that held all the money. You go back to Venice, you go
Yeah.
back to the Black nobility of Venice, and the whole sort of Sabbaty and Frankists, call them what you like, the people that have controlled our world for hundreds of years and still are, you know,
Yes.
but they manifest themselves in organizations like the United Nations, the WEF, and the WHO, and they're really they're elitist in their thinking, and they actually don't value human life.
So
Our
are
human.
they all human? Because a lot of people say, what's going on in the world, you can't have, you can't be human. You can't, because there's no empathy or compassion. They're from another
Yeah,
planet. What do you
it's
reckon?
it's a very interesting point. I mean, if you talk to some people and they say, well, and it's true, it's anti-human, it's anti-nature, it's pro AI, it's pro technology. advanced technology. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I sort of do deep dives into the whole, the whole thing with the whole Nazi agenda and how they were mucking around in the Antarctic, and what was going on there with Admiral Byrd and all that sort of thing when he flew in. And I don't know. There is some kind of link, I think, to the corporatization and the fascism and Nazism and all of that. It's something very, very odd. And I did notice that somebody asked me about where did this corporatocracy come from? And I can remember years ago, I was looking into something called the Red House Report, which happened in 1944 in Strasbourg, it's called the Red House Report because it was a meeting that was held in this Maison Rouge hotel in Strasbourg, and it was the senior SS officers who'd distanced themselves from Hitler because they weren't winning the war, and he'd been left to sort of fester in his bunker or whatever he did, I don't know. But they said they held this meeting and they invited all the big corporations of Europe to this meeting. And they said, look, we're not going to win, big corporations, German ones, IG Farben and IBM, all those big ones. And they said, look, we're not going to win this war militarily. We'll have to do it another way. They bankrolled them with all the money they'd plundered from Europe. They gave them money and they said, go set up huge corporations and we'll take over the world that way.
Yeah.
And that is what we're seeing. And I just see it as a very historical plan that's happened and is panning out. And these people aren't good. That's all.
Yeah, we know that if they're people, not people. And I love your honesty, because that makes you more credible, because you are a walking encyclopedia, Wikipedia, Sandipedia. You have so much knowledge through all the research. And that's why you can, you're telling the truth, aren't you? You've done research.
All I do is tell the truth. I don't know all the answers, but I'm still working on it. I'm still trying to find the answers.
And you're writing, you're bringing a book into.
I am writing a book. I'm writing a book, and I'm just hoping I can get it. Well, I will get it finished. By the spring. I'm certainly spending January and February finishing it off. So yes, and it's going to cover everything that's, but I know it's all changing, but up to now it's going to be covering everything, the historical, how we're seeing a big repeat of, almost like the Bolshevik Revolution right now. Global communism, famines and, all sorts of bizarre stuff that they're trying to do again. And
it's quite difficult because here in lovely Blighty, in the UK, Britain, England, I don't know what we're supposed to call it these days, we seem to be sort of away from where a lot of this drama, this trauma, this evil is in place. We're not in the war zone, are we? Whatever that be. However,
not yet.
But maybe they're bringing us into it because we might be going hungry.
Well, I think the farming thing is really worrying. It's concerning, because it is almost like the perfect storm for rationing and, and food, food security being challenged. Really, really badly. Yeah.
And one of the MPs I say that because they're supposed to be looking after us, but I can't remember which name it was, who it was, but they said, what we should be doing to the farmers is what Thatcher did to the miners. I think he was quoted saying that. I don't know if you've heard that one, which kind of sums it up. They don't want the small farmers, so they want corporate farmers. So going back to the IBMs and the big companies, it's corporate farming, isn't it? What they've got planned. So tell us, what do you know? What research have you done all about farming?
What I've been looking at is the documents that the government have brought out, fairly recently. They brought out several documents, and one of them in 2020 was the Agricultural Productivity Working Group. Now, it all sounds quite boring, but if you look into that, it's the report to the Food and Drink Sector Council of 2020, February. And really what they're talking about in there is new production methods. And they're talking about phasing out farmers being able to literally hand their farms down to their children. What they want is people to go to a university to learn about robotics, engineering, modern farming method, what they call techno-farming methods, or agri-farming they call it, so that really they learn really how to run a farm using robotics and 5G. They have to learn how to use all the mechanisms which most farmers don't really don't really know about. And so although they tried to introduce, well, they have introduced agri-farming into Somerset, for instance, where cows are wearing 5G collars so that they can actually, as soon as their body tells them that they need milking, they will go to the milking parlour. It's almost like a mind control thing.
Yeah.
And it's horrible. And they've been wearing those collars for a few years in Somerset. It's really awful. But the thing is that actually that's almost like a stepping stone, because what they really want to do is get rid of the cows and almost put the 5G collar on us,
Yeah,
So
sure.
the whole thing is really, in this report, they talk about phasing out meat and dairy and beef production, and automation and autonomous systems, taking over farming. So they want 24/7 robotic farming in these, what they call super farms, and they really want people who have been trained in this, who've got degrees in this, to run the farms. And they're kind of, and then you've got people like Sainsbury's, I mean, sort of organizations like Sainsbury's, with their Future of Food report, which is really quite concerning. Do look it up, Sainsbury's Future of Food. And they've got a plan from 2025 to 2169 to actually phase out farmers completely. And they say, the CEO of Sainsbury's said, in the future, farmers won't exist. The supermarkets will produce all the food for the future using AI technology. And then, further down the line, they've got this, the CEO, Claire Hughes, says, by 2069, working alongside our suppliers and producers, we predict to have introduced foods like jellyfish and patch dinners to the British diet that are not even fathomable today. So they want to phase out completely meat and dairy. They want not even plant milks. They want you having algae milks, and obviously insects and jellyfish proteins. And they're talking about insect carbonara in this report. I mean, it's hideous. Jellyfish suppers. I mean, it's all, to me, I don't think this will happen, but it's just even unbelievable that they're talking about it. And they've got this plan to actually have space stations growing food in 2169.
Space station. So that is where it is off planet.
Yeah, it's off planet. Yeah, 2169. They reckon that it will be, and they're talking about having your own 3D printers in your house to 3D print your food, meat. Yeah.
Delicious.
I mean,
I hear Mr. Musk, he's talking about going off to Mars, isn't he? Unless they're already there and creating civilizations. I'm sure they're already there. Who knows what's going on? But
yeah, I mean, it does make me wonder, because 2030 is this massive date that they've got in their head. Between 25, I mean, obviously 2025 is January. Between there and so 5 years, they've got this idea to literally accelerate it to the point where they're taking people off to Mars or somewhere. But it won't be for us. We'll be left behind.
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, we're supposed to be the gatekeepers, aren't we, for the future generations?
Yeah.
Or for the Hunger Games that might be coming our way. And I think that's the thing, they tell you in the movies what their intentions are.
Oh yeah, always.
But I mean, some of this, for the new generations, that a lot of them they literally come out the womb with a phone in their hand, and you see the families, putting iPads, little baby iPads in front of babies to shut the kids up. So we're moving into this generation, or the new generation, just love technology. They love all this digital stuff. I had the plumber around the other day trying to what you call it, God, I can't think of the word. Everything's like with Wi-Fi. My thermostats are all Wi-Fi. All these things are talking to each other, and I don't want them talking to each other. I want them good old-fashioned, with wires.
Yeah, analog. Bring back analog.
Yeah. And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm in the digital age. I like all this stuff." So the new generation, and he's in his 40s. The younger people coming in, maybe they'll love all this. What Agenda 2030 is planning. maybe these youngsters want this kind of lifestyle. Maybe we're interfering. I mean, what do you think about that?
Do you know, it's really difficult because I see a lot of anxiety in youngsters because they know there's something wrong with the world, but at the same time, they've been told that all this new stuff, this digital age is going to make their lives easier. We know that things, you know, we remember analog, we remember what it was like before these mobile phones and before all this, and life was easier, much easier. And it's not going to make your life easier, it's going to complicate it.
Yeah.
And you know, that there's it just seems to me that everything that this agenda is bringing in is just causing chaos, and is
Yeah.
also expensive. It's causing a massive amount of poverty throughout the world.
Yeah.
And the whole renewable energy thing. I mean, there was an interesting article. I can't remember who sent it out last week. There's a place in Australia called Broken Hill, and they were the first. It's an outback town, mining town.
Yeah.
And it's got red dust everywhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were the first town to completely rely on renewables, and everything literally crashed down the other day. So nothing worked in that town because all the renewables, it just, you know, it didn't work.
That
And
lived up to his name.
I can see this happening all over if they try, and
Yeah.
you know, sort of because renewables aren't enough to fulfill the grid, and we know that. And it's all a big fat lie, really, that, I mean, they seem to want us all on electric, which is just not, it's not even doable by 2030 to get everything onto electric and get everybody dancing to the net zero tune or the absolute zero tune, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not going to work.
So do you think it's a means of like enslaving us because of the poverty? You know, people are struggling, aren't they, to eat or to heat
Yeah.
homes, the older people. We know what this new government's, you know, where they're spending their money. So all this Agenda 2030, the purpose is to enslave us?
Well, do you know, I'd love to know the answer to that. It's either to get rid of us or enslave us, or certainly to have a slightly decreased population, a vastly decreased population, if you like, that's easier to manage, that, you know, that aren't what they call using up resources. But I also wonder, and I've churned this about with a few friends who are really going into the whole what's going on in the solar system and the universe itself. But certainly the solar system, the magnetic, you know, the Earth's magnetic poles are, you know, they're diminishing, they're weakening, and we're susceptible, if there is another massive solar mass ejection, we'd be susceptible to the grid being taken down. And I'm wondering if the elites know this. And the best way is to force us all onto electric, so that if it did go down, like it did in 1869, we had what's called a Carrington event, and the grid went down. But in 1869, not many people were on electric. All the power cables that they put under the sea to get to America to set up the New York Stock Exchange, they blew up, and they had to redo those. Spent the next 5 years putting those to rights. But it didn't impact this country very much. If it happened now, it would literally, people would starve. There would be no food distribution, and everything would go down. So I'm wondering if they know what's happening, and their idea is to get, you know, maybe get off planet while it's happening, you know, while there's
jump ship,
destabilization going on.
Do you know why it went in 1869? Was that something malicious that happened, or was it just
no? It was a complete. It's like what's happening now. The Earth's magnetic field weakened, and when it weakens, it does do this every now and then. It weakens, and the poles start to shift a little bit. And well, I don't know, because I'm not a scientist. All I know is that there was a massive solar mass ejection that came out of the sun, and it knocked out the grid. And there was this scientist called Carrington who monitored it, and it was called the Carrington event. He warned about it, and it was exactly the same. At the moment, we're seeing aurora borealis all over England. Well, they were seeing aurora borealis all over the world at that point. And when it happened, when the Carrington event happened, it literally created daylight in America. I mean, it was extraordinary. It hit
Wow.
America quite badly. And some people in mining towns thought that it was morning and got up, but it was actually the middle of the night because it was so
Wow.
bright. Yeah.
So
So
maybe the gods are interfering a little bit.
well, I did wonder, maybe it's maybe it's God or who, or whatever, some plan to knock all this AI out, and get rid of it. But we need to do it. It needs to happen before they take our ability to keep warm and feed ourselves. Yeah.
So now, interestingly, you mentioned the Northern Lights, Aurora Borealis.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you've been to my house, and the other day, probably 2 weeks ago, I was coming home, and the sky was pink. It was beautiful.
I saw that.
Pink. Yeah, and I just thought, oh, that I don't think that is the Northern Lights. I think that's something else. It would be nice if it was the Northern Lights. And I sent a picture of it to a friend, and she said, "Oh, it's cardium or something, barium, cardium, from all this HAARP, what HAARP's doing, which is
it could be, yeah,
stuff up."
It could be that they're creating this thing that it is the Northern Lights, because when you see the Northern Lights, it's very different. It's green.
Yes, I have seen them. I've seen the real ones, and then
you don't get total pink out, which people
like radiation.
I don't know what the answer is. I really don't.
No, I know.
There's a guy called Patrick Gerald. If anybody wants to go on his Substack, he's talking about all this because he's studied it all about pole shifts and polar shifts and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't really. It's awful. I try not to get too involved in that because there's so much other stuff that
well, I mean, you're focused
on the ground,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's important stuff to know what's going on in the solar system. But sometimes, at the moment, we're all overwhelmed with everything. So talking about the end is nigh isn't possibly very productive at the moment. Which it may not be the end, but I think it's certainly we're headed for quite challenging times. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think so. But then again, going back to when I was talking about the youngsters, and they might say bring it on this new method of farming and what have you, like the Luddites or the Industrial Revolution.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, do you see any positivity? Do you think that they might have a little bit of heartwarming care for us and thinking, let's.
I'd like to think so. I mean, in the right hands, this could be really, technology can be used for good.
Yes.
But all I'm seeing at the moment is that they want to take it out of the hands of the farmers because they possibly are looking at the farmers as Luddites. And there's a lot of good people who create these documents for the government, who think that this is all wonderful. But the trouble is that it puts it into the hands of people who can control it, and if they haven't got the right ethos, then we're in trouble. It actually takes it out of the hands. What I'm noticing is that farmers, I know not all farmers, I mean farmers have farmed in the wrong way, the fertilizers and not the fertilizers, the sort of the pesticides and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes the fertilizers as well. And what we need to do is get back to regenerative farming and healthy farming.
Yeah.
And I see the AI as an antithesis of that. Or there's nothing natural about it. They want things grown under LED, or some sort of artificial light. They want robotic farming. They want to control that everything is monitored and controlled. And a lot of this, if you've got stuff, 3D printed meat, I mean, who knows what's in it? I mean, who knows what the stem cells are taken from?
And I can't get my head around how does it come out of a printer? I mean, I have seen a video of it. How does it manifest?
And how can it be nutritious food? This is the problem. Nutritious food needs nutrients in the soil. It can't be grown hydroponically properly. Or, I just feel that what they're going to be doing is producing mass food that is really not good for us. And and we do need meat and dairy to keep healthy. We do.
It's interesting when you were talking about these 5G or these cows. They're not 5G cows. They're cows with a 5G collar. You said. So who instigated that? The farmers? Did they think, oh, this is a good way to save me getting a farmer to bring the cows in? I don't need a cowboy. I'll just go and get a collar. So do you think some of the farmers have been tricked into using this technology?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, what I'm finding interesting is these collars monitor all the bodily functions of that cow. It monitors its entire body, its heart rate, its its food intake, its milk production, all its organ functions, everything. And this is almost like what they are wanting within the NHS, injectables, wearables, things that monitor your health. And it's almost as though they're trialing it out on the cows.
Yeah,
They don't want the cows because they've already said in the Absolute Zero report and in everything in the planetary diet of the C40 cities and in the UN's planetary diet, it all says no meat and dairy. So why would they bother to put these collars on cows? Sorry.
that's okay. You mentioned C40 cities. What's the
C40.
Right, so these are smart cities you're talking about, the 15 minutes.
Yeah, well, if you look at the, oh gosh, hang on a minute, what am I doing? Oh,
Because whilst you're looking
yeah,
at
sorry, I've just got rid of that. Yeah, what they've tended to do is, yeah, if you look at the C40 cities document, that is all about the Covenant of Smart City or mayors for energy and climate change that they're trying to get into all our town councils. But
yeah,
they've produced this planetary diet, and it's quite interesting because it's almost like a pie chart of things that you should and shouldn't eat
yeah,
for your own, health. But it is phasing out things like milk, meat, dairy, and also advocating rationing too if things get too difficult.
yes, yes. It's interesting, again, what you just mentioned about, light for, I don't know, constant light for animals and plants. I actually went and rescued, so I'm not rescued personally, but I took hold of some rescued chickens on Saturday, and they were at their 18 months. So chickens, when they reach 18 months, that's when the industry says, right, we're not getting enough eggs from them, off with their heads, and off they go to the slaughterhouse unless people rescue them. So there was something called Fresh Start for hens. So I went and picked 10 chickens up.
Oh, that's lovely.
It's lovely. They're in my garden now. But another guy that was picking up the chickens behind me with his little box, he just said, and he's obviously doing it for kindness, but he said, oh, is it true? Does anybody know if you put a light on over the chicken coop, the hen house, they lay more eggs? And I just thought, wow, again, we're interfering with nature. Here he's trying to do a good thing by rescuing or saving these chickens' life. But again, he's thinking he's messing with nature by putting lights, or he's suggesting it, over the hen house so there's more egg production.
So they think it's daylight all the time.
Yeah, that's right. They're a rest of the wicked. And I said, how can you be so cruel? Why are you here rescuing them when you want them, they're animals, they're living, creatures.
They need a rest, yeah.
They need a rest.
Yeah.
They need a rest. But then again, that's why you've got the vegan movement. So I've got vegans in my family and they are doing it. And I was vegan for a year because of the cute and fluffy reason. I didn't want to eat meat, and I still do. I tried it the other week for a week, and it didn't work. It hasn't very well. But so I understand why people don't want to eat meat for genuine reasons. But of course, it's been pushed at us. It's another agenda, isn't it, to get us off eating?
Well, I mean, I think obviously, be vegan, be vegetarian. It's a matter of choice, and I've got no problem with anybody doing whatever they want, eating whatever they want. But the only thing that bothers me is the fake meat industry. You don't know what's in it, and it's actually that if you look at the chemicals that are in fake meat, you wouldn't want to eat it.
Exactly.
And this is a big industry. Bill Gates is heavily tied up in this. He's bought fake meat, companies. He's pushing the whole fake meat agenda. And, we don't know what's in it. It could be, it's like Soylent Green. What the hell are you eating? Yeah.
I think he's the biggest landowner in the States. It's why he went through a rampage of buying all these hectares and loads of farms. And then you think, oh, why then? Then you realise something's
going on. Yeah. No, there's, yeah.
What can we do? Because I think with what's just gone on over the last 4 years with the this COVID years and stuff like that, a lot of people have been very active because a lot of us have an idea of what's planned.
Yeah.
And a lot of us think, oh, we're a load of nuts, we're bonkers. And I don't know how the farmers have felt in that, but now it's affecting them, isn't it? It's not until something affects you, You'll just
Yeah.
have to carry on with your life unless you are somebody extraordinary.
Yeah.
Hang on, we've got to do something about this. So now the farmers are being affected. What do you think they're going to do? They're turning up in London tomorrow, aren't they? I think in their
Yeah.
buses and in their droves. They're becoming quite
Yeah.
French, I think, with what they're going to be doing. I mean, what's the
Well, you know, in a way,
plan?
we're lagging a bit behind because this happened in India, it happened in Holland, it's
Holland,
happened
yeah,
in France, and they've used tactical differences of how these you know how these sort of protests are going to be sort of used. And in fact, the farmers in Holland, they use the fertilizer. They took their fertilizer away. They've used different modus operandi. And in India, they used just simply land seizures. The government decided to seize the land off the Indian farmers. And in France, it was all about tariffs. But in England, it really is. It's been an incremental thing, because they changed the subsidy. Obviously when we came out of the EU, it was the common agricultural policy, where they'd been getting subsidies for not for not growing things like set aside and all that sort of thing, and they were getting subsidies for not growing. And that was replaced by the sustainable farming incentive, which is really the erosion of subsidies, because the future by 2027, they don't want any farmers getting subsidies. So they've been told, you've got to create businesses on your land. And those businesses have got to sustain you. And those businesses, none of it is about food security. It's all businesses on your land, like you've got to have renewable energy, like solar farms, wind farms, housing, loads of housing being built on our arable land.
yes,
You've got to have you've got to have glamping on your land, any business, forest schools, whatever, but you can't, nothing is about food. So they are all being encouraged to not grow, they're being paid. Their subsidies will remain if they have set aside, for things like herbal leys and other things that are rewilding, for instance,
yeah.
but not growing food. So they're being incentivized not to grow food, which is really unbelievable. You think, yeah,
It is, as a farmer, that's what farmers
yeah.
do.
And I think they were beginning to get their heads around this, and then of course they've had this the thing, the nail in the coffin, I think, was the whole the tax on inheritance, and that has really that's made them come out in a way. Yeah.
Until it affects you. Now that will affect
Yeah.
it's obviously going to affect
And
them.
so we've had lagged behind because the Dutch were doing this over 2 years ago, India also, France last year, now it's us. And I'm hoping that they can somehow reverse that inheritance tax thing. But we do need to look at food security, and that, because it is one of the government's 13 essential criteria for humans to thrive. It's in I think it's the 13 infrastructures that have to be protected by law in government, and food security is one of them. And if they're taking away our ability to grow food for ourselves, then that's got to be wrong. And so that's the issue we have to address. And that's what I would be doing if I was a farmer tomorrow, is saying, where's the food security? And I think there's enough of them now to
they know something's not quite right. Like you said, they've all been getting their government incentives, their grants and what have you. And I'm just going back to the rewilding one, because in theory that sounds lovely, doesn't it? Sort of give that land to the nature and what have you. But I think, again, there's a little bit of a nefarious reasoning behind that, is there not?
Yeah, it's to just get rid of food production. And another really worrying thing, and I'm pretty sure this is probably happening in all low-lying areas. Now, this is happening globally. It's called in Australia and New Zealand, they call it managed retreat. But we're being told now. I want to just show you very quickly. I hope you can see this. Can you see that?
Yeah, lift it up a wee bit. Up higher a little bit more. Can't see the thing on the right. Householder's Guide to Property Flood Resilience. Oh.
And that is what looks like a London street with blow-up boats all along it. This is a leaflet that's being given out in my area. Household Guide to Property Flood Resilience. And you've got all these different, at the bottom, you've got all these different NGOs.
Yeah.
And they're called Flood Re, Landmark, Flood Mary, and RAB. Now, these are NGOs that are going to profiteer from the flooding. And, you know, this is really interesting because we have got low-lying areas that are reclaimed land here, but they're all very, very much grass, grazing land and farmland. And they're planning to flood them again. And they did this in 2014, where areas of Somerset were flooded deliberately. And the way they did it was the Environment Agency just don't maintain the means for it not to flood. Like they don't dredge the reams, they don't look after the pumping stations, all the infrastructure. And it's the same thing that's happening all over the world. And we've got, you know, it's happening in Europe, which is why all those places flooded, you know, like.
Well, Valencia, wasn't it? Apparently they removed some dams previously.
They've removed dams. So, do you know, it's unbelievable. I did write it down. Europe has closed and demolished 239 dams in 17 European countries since 2001. Now, if that isn't crazy, and there is a video called "Why is Europe Removing Dams?" I, you know, obviously do look at it, but I think I do get the belief that they're deliberately getting rid of farmland and people's livelihoods, you know, and causing chaos. Yeah.
I agree with you. But also going back to sort of taking land, there's other ways that they appear to have been taken through DEW, dues, isn't it? Direct energy.
Yeah, there's well, yeah, and that maybe there is. You see, I can't, you know, I only ever deal with stuff that I can prove, but I know there's something not right about our weather. You know, Europe has had very, very bizarre rainfall. I mean, Spain and even Malta, you know, they've had rain. They don't usually get rain until February, and then it's heavy rain, but it soon goes. But they usually have good weather, you know, right up until Christmas and and January.
But I mean, at least there is a video. Have you seen the video floating around? It was around many years ago by the UN, and where they are actually admitting that they are playing with the weather, calling it. I think they're still calling it geoengineering, or not cloud seeding or other stuff, but they're actually saying that
they call it sun dimming. There was one thing where
they were trying to so many different names. And with these HARP centres, which I just thought there was one or two over in Antarctica where we're not allowed to go, but I'm seeing pictures of them pop up all over the place, and I don't know how true it was. Just outside Spain near Valencia, there was a boat with all these things pointing up into the ionosphere, the atmosphere, where they're shooting stuff up there to fiddle around with nature, which isn't good in my opinion. I prefer nature to be nature without the interference. So what can we do as mere mortals? What can we do?
I think the farmers have to say no to certainly the inheritance tax, because that is the nail in the coffin. That goes along with this this report I was telling you about, where they say they want farms now to be run by people who've been educated in agri-farming and AI. You know, the farmers know about seasons and nature and all that stuff. You know, to take that away from them is ridiculous. And you know, they might call us Luddites, but I don't believe that. So I think we've really got, it's got to the point where the farmers have got to say no to that inheritance tax, and farmers also have to wake up to the fact that the all the stuff that they're being told they've got to do by DEFRA, and DEFRA are saying you've got to set up businesses on your farms that will sustain you, so we don't have to give you subsidies. And food is, you know, food production has been subsidized worldwide forever, simply because it's an essential. If you take people's ability to feed themselves away, then, you know, you've got a starving population. And the farmers have to realize that putting business and money before food production is bad. And in fact, what they can do is cut out the supermarkets and sell directly to the people. Farm and farm well, you know, do regenerative farming, put all that manure back into the soil and let the animals walk on the land. That's what regenerative farming is about. and to have raw milk and, you know, do it all properly and get back to all the nutrients that keep us healthy, and, you know, and do away with all this you know, fake stuff that they're trying to force us to eat.
Yeah,
And
for
if they cut out the supermarkets, I don't know if they can, but that would be amazing if they were able to sell to the people straight, you know, straight off.
I think that's key, because there are a few organisations now that are doing that. They just need to be sort of bigger. They need to
Bigger,
grow.
yeah.
That's the thing. We need to support them. And I try as hard as I can to avoid the supermarkets. Again, it's a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
We're so busy, you know, rushing from here to there, and we don't have a lot of free time. So it's more convenient for us to go to the supermarket, not the baker, the butcher, the candlestick maker. You know, we go under one roof. And that's there. So there's an element of laziness there, and I guess cost as well. If you can go to Aldi as opposed to, you know, you're going to the greengrocer where it's more expensive. But that's a choice that we have to, as individuals,
Yeah.
and do.
And it's about not giving the chance for this corporatocracy to take hold, because the whole idea of really creating this thing where farmers are got rid of in favour of supermarkets like Sainsbury's is that there will be no small businesses.
No,
You know, the small businesses are what make our country amazing. And
absolutely.
it's
What we
taking
are.
away the ability of the small people to actually function and do trade. And
Yeah.
you know, even the stuff that they're implementing, the biodiversity net gain on land, you know, it's another financial instrument that they're going to tax you on. If you've got land, they're going to try and tax you. We've got to say no to biodiversity net gain, because it is simply a financial instrument. It's another tax on land. We've got to say no to ESGs, environmental and social governance contracts in businesses, because they are there to destroy your business and to monitor you and make you accept diversity, equity and inclusion constantly, to get the paperwork done, and for also to really make life difficult for you so that you fail and they can have more control over your business. So I think it's about saying no to all this nonsense, you know, because at the end of the day, they are trying to shift us from ordinary free market economy to stakeholder capital. Well, it's like communism, stakeholder capitalism, which is all about cutting out small businesses and going for corporatocracy. We don't want corporatocracy. Yeah.
So we can all do a bit. We can do our bit. It's not just the farmers turning up. You know, we have to support the farmers by buying locally and cash as well, because it's the same thing, isn't it? If we don't use cash, we're giving away our power, because we're going to be using cards or digital currency, and they know exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it and where we're doing it and who we're doing it with. So it's we've got to continue using cash and go to those local farmers markets.
Yes, I think I've just signed up to get my milk delivered from a local farmer in Bruton. And it's raw milk, and it's going to be delivered. It's more expensive, but it will be delivered to my doorstep, and it's good milk. And
if more people did that, it would be less expensive, wouldn't it? That's the thing. If more people did that, it wouldn't be.
More people did it, exactly. Yeah.
But as usual, it's a numbers game, isn't it?
So I think if we were all, you know, eat, if you do eat meat, eat less meat, but really good meat.
Yeah.
And obviously get your vegetables from, you know, from the grower directly, you know, as best you can. I think we just need to support our farmers, because the supermarkets have manipulated them for many years on pricing and everything. And I think they're in a bit of a trap, really, the farmers. And it's about seeing your way out of that trap. And, you know, I don't have all the answers, but hopefully there's some farms that are working that can say, look, we do it like this and we do it like this, and help them. Yeah.
Because also the big boys, you know, the supermarkets do have charge, don't they? I remember where I was living over in East Sussex, there was a poultry farm, and all their eggs went, I think it was to Sainsbury's. The whole supply of eggs just went to Sainsbury's. So Sainsbury's can then determine, you know, if they like the size of the eggs or how much they're going to pay for the eggs, because otherwise you're stuffed. You've just built up that one contract.
It is.
And they seem to really want to wipe that out.
I mean, I think you're right. I think that really once the supermarkets get a grip, they're the big, you know, the big money people, and they have the power because they have the money. And it's about seeing beyond that, and maybe, you know, just creating a different system within, you know. But I know that obviously, you know, with the agenda being so powerful, will they allow us to do it, or, you know, will they try and stop us? But I think if there's enough people, honestly, there's so many people now realizing what's going on. I don't think they can stop it. I mean, there are things that we did manage to stop, things like vaccine passports, by marching en masse on London. You know, we
Yeah,
can do this. We
yeah,
can do it. And I think we probably sometimes think, you know, we diminish ourselves because we think, well, what can we do? You know, with these massively powerful governments that are telling us that if we don't do this, then we'll be put to jail or whatever.
yeah.
You know, even with the freedom of speech at the moment, I mean,
I know, it's crazy.
it's ludicrous.
Well, it's
So
all fear
I
mongering,
think,
isn't it?
yeah, they're running scared. They really are. And I really believe that, you know, calling them out. I mean, I do remember when I was. Have we got time? Yeah, we've just got. Yeah,
We've got another 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to talk about this flooding a bit more, because this flooding has really got to me, because they're holding all these consultations not far from me saying the levels will flood. There's nothing you can do about it, and you have to put all your electrical things higher up your walls, and they're recruiting flood wardens to help with the flood. It's almost like Dad's army, you know. And I brought up at the local council meeting, I said, look, hang on a minute, why aren't we actually looking at the defences, the sea defences that we've had in place for 400 years? The Dutch showed us how to do it, how to stop the, you know, the lowlands from flooding. I said, why aren't we dredging the reams? Why aren't we looking after the infrastructure that stops it from flooding? Why are we saying, look, sorry, it's a fait accompli, you're going to flood, never mind, hey. I mean, it's so much, you know, farmland is going to be, and people's houses and everything. And this happened in 2014, as I told you. And what's really interesting is when the levels flooded in 2014, I was down there, weirdly. I was making a documentary with a chap called David Lim about cloud seeding. And we abandoned film because we'd had a really ridiculous rainfall in 2014, and it was spring. And the River Parrett was about to burst its banks, and it had caused major flooding all over. There were 65 square miles of Somerset underwater.
Wow.
And the Parrett and the Tone had burst their banks, and Boroughbridge was this place that was badly affected. Now, when I arrived to make this film with David Lim, and we abandoned it in the end because the people were in trouble. So I was sandbagging at night, you know, with the locals, because there was nobody helping. The Environment Agency were nowhere to be seen, the bit government nowhere, Army and Navy nowhere to be seen. So we were sandbagging at night, and there was this extraordinary aid organisation called CALSA, who'd been flown in from the Haiti earthquake, and they were a Sikh organisation, and they were only people helping the people of Somerset. And in the morning, all the reporters like Sky News and the BBC were all on the banks, just, you know, watching, and the bridge, watching the thing, you know, the water rising. And I met a journalist down there, and he said, his name was Christopher Booker, and he was lovely. And I kept in touch with him afterwards. He wrote for the Telegraph, and he said, you do know this is Agenda 21. And I'd only just really, it's 2014, 10 years ago, I'd only just really been talking about Agenda 21. And I said, well, how do you know? And he said, just look at Policy 6, Environment Agency.
Wow.
And I looked it up, and I do put it in my PowerPoints now. There's an area on Policy 6 of the Environment Agency of 2020. It was actually put together in 1997 by Baroness Young, who was then the head of the Environment Agency, and she had designated that area to be flooded for wading birds, for biodiversity. And so it was exactly that area that flooded.
Wow.
And it went right back to the Ramsar Treaty of 1971. And it was all about flooding it for, you know, Agenda 21 biodiversity for wading birds, and nothing about the people. And it was such a revelation to me, which is why it kind of really consolidated the very fact that we had to save the land, you know, that the land is being taken over to be controlled by the United Nations. And
Wow.
you know, all these reservations and what they call, you know, they're doing it for conservation. It was such an oxymoron, because there were hedgerows underwater, and I watched deers floating dead up the Parrot. You
Oh,
know, this was nothing about biodiversity,
no.
and yet it had been deliberately flooded because they hadn't dredged the reeds, they hadn't sorted out the pumping stations, they'd cut all the trees down along the River Parrot, which sucked all the water
Yeah.
up. So it was a deliberate attempt at flooding it, and you know, it's never gone back to normal. Never. And the thought of that happening now all around the coastline, which is what they're telling us is going to happen, for me is it's destruction, and it's destruction of our livelihoods and everything that we know.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, that's another aspect is the building on all the farmland, because
Yeah.
as you know, where I live, I'm living in the old farmhouse, and previous occupants sold all the land, and they are building so many houses, house after house after house. And when I bought the house 3 months ago, obviously my solicitors did the reports, flooding reports and stuff like that. Nothing came up until I moved here, and now I'm being told by, you know, local residents that, oh yeah, this area is known for flooding just outside your house by the roundabout. Yeah, and they say it's never come up to my house, but the road is notorious, and sometimes when we get a lot of rain, you can't pass that roundabout, you have to go around the long one. I've yet to experience that, but they know that, you know, the powers that be, the councils, and they have allowed literally hundreds of houses to be built here.
You see, normally those houses, you know, the rain would come down and sink into some sort of water table.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like people, you know, tarmacking their drives in London.
Exactly.
You know, there's nowhere for them.
No, they're going to need those dinghies.
Yeah.
And around here, I think, because I'm on the coast as well, near Littlehampton, which flooded, you know, naturally a couple of years ago, and all the groins, everything. It looks like a building site down there now. It's horrendous, and nothing has been done as far as I know. But it just seems like it's part of that agenda to keep building,
Yeah.
so we can't grow the food. The farmer makes a quick buck. They think, oh, that's great. I'll sell the land because I can make a lot of money from it. And then all these people, God knows where these people are coming from. There's just hundreds of houses everywhere you go where there's a bit of green, bush, let's put a house.
Yeah.
House. So where are all these people coming from? That's what interests me. Are they all coming from London? It's because they're, you know, London's changing with the influx of the refugees. I don't know. It's all being very hickledy-pickledy, Sandy.
We don't know what's going on. I mean, I'm amazed at the amount of building that's going on everywhere. I mean,
it's well, let's see what happens. Sandy, we're coming up to an hour. Is there anything else you would like to say?
I don't think so. Well, apart from flooding, there's another weird thing that they're trying to do on the North Somerset coast.
Yeah.
And it's where they've got a new nuclear reactor being built. It's a collaboration between French EDF and the Chinese. And they're saying now, and this has got all the Somerset farmers along that part of the coastline really up in arms, because it is prime grazing land. And they've said that they're using the sea to cool the reactors down. And this is going to affect the fish stocks, you know, the fish in the sea.
Yeah.
And so they've said that they are going to re-sea, in order to give the fish more room, re-sea the North Somerset coastline, let it flood so that we've got more sea for the fish. And now this doesn't make sense to me at all, because you can't tell fish where to go. And the water level will be quite shallow, you know, on the land. But what it's doing again is it's getting the prime, wonderful grassland. You see that normally the farmers allow the cattle to for a part of the year to eat the salt grass, you know, which is very nutritious for them. And naturally they then move inland and they eat, but they love the salt grass at some time of the year because it puts their salt levels up and obviously their mineral levels up. and then they go and they move inland and they eat the normal grass. So this is something that all the farmers are, there's farmers all along that coastline saying, what, you're gonna deliberately re-see our farmland. It's mad. I mean, and it is all part of this agenda.
Yeah.
I mean, if everyone knew exactly what this agenda is, and it's to stop our food production,
Yes.
we wouldn't go along with it.
No, that's right. But people, I always try and sow a seed here and there. If I just mention something to somebody, they say, oh, don't be crazy. Don't be, as if that's going on. I said, well, it is actually, just look to the skies, for instance, when it's a lovely blue sunny day, the next day, and they come out and do their crisscrossing.
Yeah.
The next day is going to be buggered. Oh, excuse me, French, but and that is quite a good seed to mention to people, actually, because it's very credible now, because it's so apparent. We don't have lovely sunny days in a row now, and you can see all the crisscrossing up in the sky. It's blatantly obvious, and then a bit of research and the evidence comes. So we have to just keep doing what we're doing and helping to wake people up.
Yeah.
Going on. And you do an amazing job, Sandi. Absolutely.
Well, I try, but I sometimes, I mean, I never ever, when I first got onto this, I never ever thought that it would end up this way. I thought that they were just going to use climate change, we'd all wake up to it and it would be over.
Yeah.
It's with the pandemic has completely changed the whole narrative, and pushing that through and getting all the infrastructure in and really accelerating it to the point where it's going to be more difficult to unravel. But I think it is about really people understanding the whole picture and understanding that this isn't benevolent. They're doing stuff that is really seriously affecting our ability to live. And if people really understood that, they wouldn't be going along with it. We just have to keep on doing what we're doing. And I am heartened that more and more people are beginning to wake up. And I hope that, people in apparently there's going to be quite a few people at the rally. It shows now that the British farmers possibly are waking up, whether they understand the whole agenda. Some of them do. I know some of my farming friends from Somerset are going, and they do understand the agenda. Maybe they can wake the others up. The others seem to think it's just the farmers that are being targeted. No, it's all of us.
No, it's every aspect.
Yeah.
Time will tell. And it is an exciting time to be alive, I think, if you know what's going on. It's quite a challenging, but it gives us purpose. I guess that's why we're here, to do whatever we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Very, very well. And I just thank you. Thank you for
well, thank you. You're doing a fantastic job with,
Well, I'm not out and about all the time like you are, just doing.
Well, you've moved and it's been difficult, but yeah, I am out and about a bit. I'm doing a talk in Chiswick on the 8th of December, which should be good, at the Memorial Hall, Chiswick. And I've got the book coming out, and I am doing a talk with the bowler hat farmer with Richard Vobes in where is it?
Southampton.
Southampton, thank you. The Attic, Southampton. If anybody wants to come along to that, I don't know the bowler hat farmer very well. I know he's involved with, I think it's No Farmers, No Food. We don't know what that is. It's all leading the march, and that must be good. But it'll be nice to sort of get together, get to know him, and understand, what's and pool our knowledge, and actually maybe inform a few people about what's really going on in the world, and again, put the message out.
Well, I think that's all we can do, isn't it? We tell people what's going on, and they have to make their decision what they want to do about it. But if they want the world to be a happy place for humanity, generations to come, then they have to sort of get stuck in a little bit.
They'll have to.
Even just changing their shopping habits. That's shopping habits. That's just one thing, isn't it? Just go local, support your local farm, keep using cash, and that's enough.
Keep using cash is a really important one. Really important. And apparently the use of cash is going up again.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, we've just got to keep trying to keep what keeps us free.
Thank you, Sandi, for your time.
Thank you. It's been lovely talking to you.
Likewise, always is. And I will see you, no doubt, very soon. So I'm just going to